For both of you, yes.
Soon to be former.
Yes. We're preparing the live stream. I'm excited to go over it. Evaluation. No, you're gonna write it right for it. Believe me. You're allowed. It really should be in the frame. I agree. Just not enough in it. There, half. You're alive. Okay. Go ahead, sit here.
But it's a still
Sit.
frame.
If we go back to Zoom, does it show us?
There, that looks
Yeah.
live.
Yep.
You can sit.
All right, are we ready?
She didn't think, are we like?
Almost right.
I will be fine. She's lucky. Yeah, no, she wasn't. Oh,
Okay, now we're ready. Okay. 6:02 PM, the CATC meeting on March 10th is convened. Cheryl Hammond, Vice Chair, acting as Chair. Should we do introductions, roll call? That's not on the agenda. Cheryl Hammond,
I'm Beth Schmidt. I'm a citizen of Salem.
Kara Hall, City Traffic Engineer.
Kevin Hopman, former city traffic engineer.
Tony Martin, former Assistant City Traffic Engineer.
Eric Festival, Assistant City Traffic Engineer.
Ramona Murtha, committee member, commission member.
That's what we are. We're commission members, yeah. Citizens.
Thank you. Approval of agenda is the first agenda item. Are there any additions or revisions to the agenda as written? Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, second item on the agenda, approval of minutes from February 25th. Thank you to staff for getting those out in a pretty quickly to us. Any comments or concerns about the minutes from February 25th? My only question actually related to something that was just being said. Do the two of you have some other official title? Are you interim or outgoing, or are you both formally the city traffic engineer? Or does it matter? Just as it's written in the minutes. It's just odd to have two of you
Yeah.
and two of you. You know, if someone's reading this in the future, they're like, City of Salem has two traffic engineers and two assistants.
Yes,
Is A.
that's a good point. We have not been using any other official titles,
Okay.
but we will consider what we,
It's for a short
yes. it
time
is.
period and it seems fine. It was just a question.
You're just saying, for record purposes, there should be a delineation so that future people reading the minutes could understand. I agree.
So I think this will be Kevin's last meeting. And then I can just not come. Solve that problem.
We will explore options to make sure that it's clear.
Okay,
Apprentice.
Up to and including Tony not attending apparently.
okay. All right, that being said, is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second. All those in favor? All right. All those opposed? All right. Third item on the agenda, public comment. We don't seem to have any members of the public. Then quickly moving along to our primary agenda item, which is continuing discussion of revisions to Salem Revised Code Chapter 5, which outlines the duties of CATC. And at this point, I think we hand it over to staff to drive.
So I can set a little bit of context for this. So after the last meeting, we did send out a Word version and ask that anybody who wanted to provide comments following Matt could send written comments to staff. We did receive one set of comments That's, if you grabbed the handout over here, that's the second set of comments that you have there. So we did want to make sure that we were able to share those with the commission, so everybody could see what those comments were, that were provided to you. The first page, so front and back of the first page, is our proposed incorporation of those comments, which we're going to talk through this evening. Our goal is to get to a general consensus of incorporation of those comments and any other comments that folks might have and want to share. So that following this meeting, we can circulate a draft final version for one more round of review with our public works director, planning staff, and legal. We were able to do a quick vetting of some of the comments we received with legal, but because it was kind of a short turnaround, don't feel like that's been vetted to the extent that we are ready to ask for a recommendation to move this on tonight. But the goal would be to have a clean document that we can do that with at our next meeting in April. Does that make sense?
Can I clarify?
Sure.
I went by that. The one with the pink notations
Yes.
is the things added in.
The comments received.
Okay.
Yep.
So the second sheet of paper was me sending things and the first sheet of paper is your proposed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And so my plan for kind of walking through that is just that I've gone through what we're proposing to include. We can step through this and I can share some of the context for, yes, that was incorporated. We made some edits to how that was incorporated, or here's why it's not being fully incorporated. And go from there, if that sounds like a reasonable approach. Just one other broader note, you may have noticed for our agenda and online, we had made the update to the naming for the commission. We were asked until this is taken through the council process to put that back. So it has gone back to Citizens Advisory Traffic Commission until we get that through. So just wanted to note that if you noticed that change happening on the agenda and the website, we were just asked to hold off on that until we follow all the procedure. Okay. So I'm just gonna dive in at the top and then we can discuss as we go through it. So the first comment, I think we talked about this last time, was just changing the traffic that we missed to transportation. We are proposing to incorporate that one. Getting down into section 5.15, the scope of the commission, a few comments here. So one was to incorporate requests so that it would read, serve as an appellant body for resident complaints or requests. Our proposed change there is to actually just remove complaints and have it read requests. We feel like that's a broader term and more encompassing of everything that might come before the commission. So the next one was an addition of and projects. So review transportation standards and projects governing bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicular operations. So we aren't proposing to include the addition of and projects here. And the reasoning behind that is just that projects are really the implementation of our standards. So if you are seeing projects in front of you, you're seeing those standards. And then we also have some specific duties related to projects called out further down. So in our, the commission shall have the following duties. There's some specifics about interactions with projects and what that might look like. So just in an effort to keep that top section a bit more broad, proposing to kind of have that be covered by the section below. The other addition to that sentence was adding in safety so that it would be operations and safety, which was a change that we are ready to incorporate.
Can I make a comment?
Mhm.
So now it says vehicular safety and operations.
So governing bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicular safety and operations. So intending that safety and operations is applicable.
For all of those things?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's a really long sentence.
Yes. And we will do because we're gonna take this back to legal again, we'll do one more round of review for grammar and sentences and all of
Not
that.
sure
Well,
about
the
that,
comments
but yeah.
matter and what you're saying
Yes.
specifically, and that's why I'm questioning that, it's so long.
So the intent would be, and as we look and do final edits, we'll make sure that it's clear that operations and safety
For these things.
of all modes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I was thinking swap the subject to them. That's okay.
Yeah, you could move safety and operations ahead of bicycle, pedestrian and vehicular.
Yeah.
Make it,
That makes it much better.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's for all of those things. It's more clearly for all those things than just the last thing. Okay, thank you.
Oh, but then you need a noun
Yeah,
at
you
the end
need
of the
to
sentence.
figure out something
Well, then,
modify differently.
So assuming we can work through those grammatical changes, we're all, okay. Okay, so then let's talk about this, the last sentence in this one, which is the commission shall have an advisory role. So the proposed changes to this was the commission shall have an advisory role, but no authority over policy matters related to the transportation system plan or land use decisions. And the prior reference, there was no jurisdiction over these. So just a couple things to kind of clarify here. So transportation and land use, the transportation system plans and land use decisions are in this sentence together because while the transportation system plan is not a land use decision, it is a land use document. So it is subject to approval of the planning commission for all major changes and amendments to the process. So while those two are separate things, that is why they were both included in that sentence together. Legal's preference, just from a clarity and brevity standpoint, there was the no jurisdiction piece. With the understanding that, like the projects that we were talking about above, there would still be engagement in the update to the TSP from the commission, but just having that called out or kind of assumed to fall under those duties further down, where we're referencing some of the participation in those processes.
So I hear you saying the brevity part. I guess the word jurisdiction just seems a little odd. Jurisdiction to me means a government body, like city versus county versus federal. At least in sort of plain English, jurisdiction doesn't seem to be a word that's used for like this commission's turf versus that commission's turf. So that's part of why, that's why I was proposing the word authority, because jurisdiction just sounds kind of odd to me. It's not that I'm opposed to the concept being stated. I just didn't, I'm just explaining where I was coming from with that.
So the like, you're thinking like that brings up the geographical boundary.
Or sort of like the whole
Yeah.
arena versus,
It just doesn't seem like the right word.
Okay.
What was intended by it, I think, is fine. It just seems like the wrong word.
Okay. So I think that's an opportunity for us to ask legal if they can offer some alternative suggestions there
Sure.
that they feel.
Well, I think what I like that you're asking for a different word. But I think the clarification might be authority versus jurisdiction and why, who gets to make these sort of decisions about it and what our actual authority is to do. And I like authority. I'm just questioning your clarity as to, do you want more authority or less, and why that word specifically and how you feel about it? Because I think that it matters now to have the conversation for the future.
The word authority was just a plain English word that I think roughly means the same as was intended.
What gives us rights, though, specifically like jurisdiction and authority and what rights we have? Is that what you're trying to get at?
No,
Okay,
I was not questioning the intent of the sentence, only the choice of that specific word in that place in the sentence.
I think you have a good question. I think it's really good. We'll see what legal says, but I think it's a really good question.
I don't know if legal has an opinion that the term authority is different than jurisdiction there from a like process and
Right.
power
Right.
standpoint.
Right.
So I think that's the question that we can ask them.
Right, but I definitely think that there's an absolute concrete answer
Yes.
that will be given to us about it, which is great. What right or authority do we want as commissioners or, your decision power? It's great. It's a great conversation.
So are we okay with having the advisory role in that assumed to be covered under the duties below and just revisiting that terminology for authority versus jurisdiction in that sentence?
Once we get to the duties list, that's fine.
Okay.
Like just punt it to the
Okay.
second page and then we can.
If we need to be more explicit about how it's called out there,
Yeah.
we can explore that.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to composition and appointments of term members. So there was a comment in there about the maybe including the geographic distribution by ward. And it sounds like that's a conversation we can have as part of the bylaws so that could be incorporated into the bylaws, which will be the next conversation that we start in April. So the next addition then was all members shall have a positive interest in bicycle, pedestrian, multimodal, and transportation safety. And legal raised a concern with this from the perspective of defining positive interest in who defines that and where does that definition of that live. I did see that we do have that in one of the other SRCs. But the desire was maybe not to repeat the same lack of clarity in this one. So an alternate to this could be an example from SRC 13, which I believe was the parks, was members shall be chosen from among such persons concerned with and interested in the development of parks and playgrounds and like public spaces in the city. So yeah, focusing it to interest in rather than putting a specific definition on that.
Yeah,
interest.
and I did look through other chapters and saw those two different wordings, and in my comments, I just kind of picked one. And I don't have strong feelings about exactly how it's worded, and I completely agree, like, what's the test for that? And the wording, I think I didn't use the wording from the Parks and Rec because it was kind of longer.
It's too long, yes.
But figuring something out that expresses the sentiment that we want people who are interested in what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely open to other wording suggestions.
Okay. So I think using that parks example as a version to start as a more general but concise approach is what we'll come back to you with. Okay. And then other changes in this. So the term appointive, though not a term you hear very often, needs to stay because we have ex officio members, and the appointive is what is clarifying that it is the appointed commissioners that are that the term limits apply to, and that that would be voting for the chair and vice chair. And then the additions of the other changes to that were nobody raised concern with those.
The 1 year gap and the vice chair.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I was looking at other SRC chapters, I wasn't seeing the word appointive member. A lot of them just said member.
It's possible not all of them have the
Understood.
ex officio. Yeah,
Or they just may not be technically correct.
that too.
So I was just trying to make it shorter and simpler, but I have no problem with how you,
No.
with keeping those words.
Yeah, that is not a common term. Okay. Okay, so then moving on down to the advisory functions of the commission. So some grammar edits in there, and then the first substantive change was to duty B, which is to make an issue reports with the addition of recommendations to the council respecting its studies, research, examinations, and other activities as requested by the director. Our proposal here is to leave it just at reports from the perspective that a report could include recommendations, but that we are leaving it broad enough that we aren't tying ourselves into being overly specific on that. But then that the rest of the grammatical edits would be.
Can I step back to the original description there in 030 that has been completely lined out?
Yes.
And I noticed the word parking control is listed in there, and I didn't know if that meant it was not part of this commission, or is it just was a clarification, simplification, and it does fall under.
Do you know, Evan or Tony, what the parking control, so that I actually thank you for mentioning that, because I was gonna mention that a lot of the strikeout, though apparently not all of it, is actually just rewritten. So the commission shall have the following duties, and the paragraph before that are, no, it's not included in those edits.
Okay.
But mostly, this was a lot of reformatting and not as much substance change as it may appear. Just because we struck all of that section out and then called it out in the list there below it. But I don't know about parking control. Do you know?
Yeah, parking has its own, what's that document? Parking.
Central, the parking administrative rules. And
Yeah, so there's a parking administrative rules that is a separate entity through parking services. And so we were thinking that this could kind of conflict with what's going on with that other piece. But we still have pieces in here that still will handle parking. So you'll still look at residential permit parking and other parking issues. But we wanted to stay away from the policy part of that piece, because that's handled by a different department.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we also skipped over A, and I had suggested of changing the word at the end of A because them seemed unclear on all matters before them. Seemed unclear.
So I think the use of them there was because it's following, the commission shall have the following duties. That said, for clarity, that's a grammatical edit that is fine to incorporate.
Yeah, I was saying the commission shall have this
Yeah.
as defined by the commission, so we thought it was.
Okay, that's fine.
Are we ready to, you're good with B, A and B then?
So B, you did some
I
wordsmithing.
think we incorporated
Yeah.
those changes there that were proposed.
And again, not trying to change the meaning, just trying to
Clarify.
simplify
Yes.
the wording of it.
Okay, so then the addition of C, and Cheryl, it might actually be helpful to have you share a little bit about kind of what you were thinking with this addition, just to make sure we
C.
understand, yeah.
I make a suggestion.
People who are watching are for your clarity, can we read the old one aloud, talk about the suggestions and then read the new one?
And we probably also need to speak up.
Yeah.
Sure. My proposal under section 5.030 is an addition for commission duties to send a representative to attend or participate in other transportation related meetings or processes when requested by the director. And so my purpose was to capture something that's already happening, including at our last meeting when we were looking for someone to participate in a Vision Zero. Also have been looking for someone to participate in Salem Bike Summit, and both of those happen to be me, but it could be somebody else. And I'm not sure if there are other examples, but another thing I was thinking was, I know that the Planning Commission has talked about and hasn't figured out how to request some coordination where there's overlapping topics so that the Planning Commission and CATC are not just completely isolated from each other, but can benefit from each other's, not change the authority or jurisdiction of each group, but to just have more an opportunity. Like if the Planning Commission had a transportation topic and wanted a CATC person to attend, I would want them to be able to ask and for us to be able to send someone with it being clear what that person's role is. So that's just another example that, came to mind.
So further continuity between, so the right hand's talking to the left hand kind of thing, and we can better engage,
Yes.
have more progress.
And understand each other's roles and
Well, there was no concern with the addition of this. I think one, just wanting to be sure that we have a clear distinction between the addition of this one and D there, where we have to serve as a liaison between the community and director, facilitating public engagement and input on non-land use transportation related matters. I think as we were discussing this one, the kind of things we were seeing under C and D here were exactly, a CATC member serving as on a stakeholder committee for a transportation project, like the safety action plan update. So if that's in line with what you were envisioning with that addition, there was no concern raised from the city's perspective with having that one be added.
yeah, thank you. And given that I'm not fully certain what is intended by what is now letter D, serve as a liaison, because that, you don't want to put 20 different examples of what that could be.
Yeah.
In chapter 5, but some discussion of it. So
Right.
but I guess at least my understanding based on the wording of D, the liaison, is that the two are different things.
So we were talking about one having more of an internal focus on projects or things like that, and the other being more of an external focus. So some examples of that, like serving as a liaison. Had we had the meeting in time for you all to be able to share the Fisher Road survey, that would have been something that we brought to you and asked, hey, can you please share this out with your community groups that you're in touch with to kind of help us get that word out. Or if there's neighborhood association issues or things like that where we're trying to make that external connection and you all have channels to do that, that we can bring you that information and ask that it's shared out to those channels is how we were viewing that term liaison. There could be other ways that might come up in the future, but our distinction reading it purely from kind of what we understood from the comments we received was having one be that focus on the internal processes and opportunities to engage, like the bike summit being an example, and one being external, and sharing out with community.
Thank you. And if I understand, C, the representative to attend, when you're saying internal, it's another city function.
It's a project or
It's a city
sort of
thing.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that, and I don't know if additional wording. I don't know if some words need to be added to C to make that clear, more clear, or if it's okay.
Yeah,
The way it is.
I think we're good. We just
Okay.
wanted to understand what direction you were coming from. with
Okay.
that.
So I'm fine with not further clarifying C or D, just having that discussion about what, was intended.
Yeah.
And I guess this is a time to ask, how does something like weighing in, reviewing, having input on the TSP, how does that fit into the duties that are listed?
So that would be kind of falling under C if we're using that as like participating in other meetings or processes. So still to be determined kind of what the stakeholder setup or how that engagement happens for the TSP. They're still kind of working through development of that engagement and outreach. But it could be a similar example to the stakeholder committee for the safety action plan, where CATC is actually nominating someone to participate in that process, in addition to the entire commission receiving updates at kind of critical milestones so that you can review and provide input along the way.
I guess it's the latter. I mean, thank you for clarifying that it's maybe going to be both, sending a CATC representative to some group that's convened and also bringing TSP updates to this entire group. And I guess that's the piece that, would CATC be considered to have an advisory role to TSP updates? And if so, is that something that could be spelled
Called
out?
out here. We can talk with planning about that and see if they feel like that's an addition that we can make here. And maybe it needs to be more broad than that. It might not be calling out the TSP specifically, but it might be informing updates to transportation related documents or something along those lines.
Yeah, and the TSP is a land use, authority, so we want to be careful about reaching into that, somebody else's responsibilities.
Yeah, I guess in previous meetings, I thought that CATC's role with TSP was going to be advisory. That we would be brought information and not just as an FYI, but with an opportunity to have input. Like when Beth started and was asking for, more attention to school issues and, it wasn't on the agenda. And so the answer was kind of, well, you'll have the opportunity to weigh in when we get to TSP updates. And that's been said several times. So I guess, clarifying whether it's just an informational item, an update, a status update, or whether we can comment and have those comments go back to planning.
Yeah, so some draft, go ahead.
You mean question or comment? You're just asking for clarity that you're specific with that, right? Because I think advisory is one thing, but if you're asking for questions or clarifications on things that we could better understand it, to maybe they would let us have advice. That's how I hear you saying, right?
I'm not really following
Okay.
how you're saying it, so.
I think as a citizen and us having this opportunity to be on this commission, I think it's a great opportunity to give input and to represent all the citizens and visitors of Salem. I don't think that it's heavy on decision-making necessarily all the time. And it feels kind of like, yeah, we get to learn about things and we get to comment about things, but I don't feel like that it's super powerful in us making a lot of the decisions. And that's one thing that I think is interesting about sitting in this role. But, as far as things like the TSP, people who are making those decisions, I don't know that we're gonna get a lot of that. So I just asked the questions because I wait for the answers. I don't feel like it's something that when we ask the questions, they're gonna consider them and do what we ask. So I'm being honest about it when I say, oh, what about school zones? Because I proposed the questions because I'd like to see what are the laws saying and where do we have an opportunity to learn from this? And so, but I fully expect to be told that we really don't have much say in it or advice or because we're citizens, I guess. And I don't mean to demean it or make it smaller. I just mean questioning things is important and learning from it is important. And I don't have any expectation that like our role as commissioners is gonna get to make a lot of decisions.
I guess I'm not sure why to not have that expectation where if it is in our authority.
Yeah.
Why would we not want to have input on things that relate to,
Yeah.
the scope?
Right.
So,
I think that that's also when we're talking about the role, what we're doing here is to be definitive because there shouldn't be any confusion in that. I just didn't, I come to this and I don't have a transportation or traffic background, so I always come to it as an opportunity to learn from it and say, okay, how does this work? And you guys always explain it to us and what a great opportunity it is. The general public doesn't have any idea, I think. However, everybody uses the streets and the roads and the sidewalks and the bike lanes and they have an opinion on it. And they think that they know how it works, right? So I always see it as an opportunity to learn from it. And when I'm out in public or people have something to say or comment about it, then at least I feel like, oh, I learned about this and this is what the law says, or this is what you're allowed, or I always see it as an opportunity to learn and share. And so I just didn't necessarily think that I would love an opportunity to be able to have more of a voice or an opportunity to decide things that would have an impact, but I'm not a city councilor. I'm not, part of the executive team of the city of Salem so I don't expect is what I'm trying to say. What is your expectation versus my own? And maybe Ramona's or, the other members. I think that this is is this just fluff? Do people right now or in the future just want to come here to talk about, where are you putting stop signs and who's allowed to park where? What is someone's actual intent? And that they would want to sit on this commission and take part in something. Do you really have these rights or these abilities, or are you just asking questions? And I think that's what I understand you're saying.
So I'm looking at the all 4 points together, right? So I'm hearing 2 different words, like the word advisory,
Yeah.
and then I'm feeling like are we advising or are we just giving input when asked? Right,
So-
is that sort of what
Yeah,
we're
I-
talking about?
I
Because it
think-
feels like A sort of says, we'll come to you with asking for your recommendations.
Yep.
And reports when we ask, not just because you want to. And then, I guess what I'm saying is it feels like the 4 points covers what we do and generally do, because as Beth said, things have been brought to us saying they want your opinion. What's our opinion? And we create we talk about it and come up with something, but we're not reaching out to them and saying, yeah, we don't like what you did last week.
Yeah.
But the liaison, we are part of that process of public engaging as well as giving input. So whatever means are already available to us to give input, I guess, are there. So it's sort of like a soft in-between thing to me. Does that make sense? Are we getting at what you're thinking?
well, I guess, the A in CATC stands for advisory.
Yes. And yes.
We are
I'm looking at
not-
that too.
We are not here to just learn about what exists and not ever have input or make decisions. That's not our purpose. In order to have input or have an advisory role, we do need to understand how things work. So, having informational presentations about XYZ is important so that we can have, informed input. But I guess, using the TSP as a specific example, I would like for CATC to have an advisory role, not authority or jurisdiction over, but to have an opportunity to comment and provide input and not just be given a status update.
Okay.
That's what I'm requesting.
So I agree. I support that. I think that that's fair. If someone's going to give their time, their effort and their energy to sit on this and want to learn about it, then absolutely. Everybody should have that opportunity as citizens, and you live here and you pay taxes, and that's your right as a citizen. I think that's fair to suggest that. I would agree.
So language that we had talked about but didn't get vetted and put in any specific spot, was something along the lines of engaging with the commission on major updates to transportation-related policy documents such as.
Meaning the planning commission engage
Yeah.
with the, engage with
Staff will engage with.
staff okay,
the
please,
commission.
please say it again.
Yeah, so staff will engage with the commission on major updates to transportation policy documents, such as the transportation system plan. So that was not, there was consensus that that could likely be incorporated. We didn't have enough time to get to the final, like where we would necessarily call that out or if that specificity was needed. But if there is a strong desire to see that, I think something along those lines could be incorporated. It needs to be edited to be the commission doing if we're gonna put it under the commission duties, it needs to be the commission acting. But that was talked about in response to some of the comments in the scope section and maybe could be appropriate with some.
And could you,
editing.
one more time, engage with is a key word.
And engage
The-
might
the-
not be the right word there too.
The
Yeah.
XYZ, could you just read it again, please?
Yeah.
Let's go back to where I.
So, we had written this as staff will engage with the commission on major updates to transportation related policy documents such as the transportation system plan. Again, that was not necessarily, that's not in terms of the commission doing something, so it would need to be reworded, but that was a consideration that we had identified as a way to call out.
I guess, and I understand the sentence needs to be flipped or, at the request of, to be consistent, at the request of the director, the commission
Yeah.
Yeah.
shall,
Yeah.
whatever, and then engage with isn't the right word.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the opportunity to just say, have an advisory role with the major transportation updates or whatever the rest of the.
And I think, the scope of the commission kind of defines that. It's just, it's hard for us to be specific on one piece of the transportation system being
Understood.
as one piece. So,
Understood, and the
So
major
direct- yeah.
transportation updates or major documents that's fine.
Yeah, so it's kind of defined in your scope. It says serve as an appellate body for bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicular safety and operations. So your roles are defined there. And we're just not sure how the TSP is going to be managed through the process. But, the director or council will use you to help manage all of these things that's listed in the scope.
So do you see an advisory role with TSP updates as falling within that section 5.015 review transportation standards governing however we say it, bike, ped, and vehicular safety and operations?
Because
in your view, does that
our standards live in the TSP. So that's one element of that, is that the majority of the transportation standards we're applying, roadway cross sections, things like that, are all contained in the TSP. So like Kevin was saying, that's why we were viewing that section as being encompassing of that and wanting
All
to,
encompassing and not
push that.
specific.
yeah. So that's why we felt like if it needs to be called out, it needs to be under the commission duties below, because that kind of covers the scope piece of it.
Then I feel okay with not adding a separate duty. If you consider that role to already be covered by the second half of the long sentence in 5.015.
It's very long sentence.
Yep.
Scope, right.
So then those will just stay as the proposed there with the editorial changes that were made.
Okay.
Okay. So then getting down into our last paragraph there. So that definition of controversial issues as determined by the commission, director, or council, that was effectively to say that those are the bodies that can say this is a controversial issue that needs to be sent to CATC for a recommendation. If we want to address the controversial issue with 3 or more of the quorum voters from the bylaws, we can also do that too, but we wanted to make sure that it's clear who can deem an issue controversial there.
So I guess that's not my first broader comment was it just seems a bit odd and I'm wondering why it's needed. Other Salem revised, other SRC chapters for commissions and boards don't seem to have sentences like that. About, identifying controversial issues. I guess I'm just wondering why it's needed for us if it's not something that most boards and commissions have.
Can we read the old sentence and
Here.
the proposed
Is it
one?
about the time?
Controversial is in the bylaws. The definition.
Yeah.
So it may not be needed in code.
In that one too. This is an example of something that existed before. So this is in that strikeout section
Right.
above and has just
Right,
been
understood.
moved down.
Yeah.
And yeah, my understanding was, it does look like it previously only said the commission and has now been updated to include director or council to those changes. So that looks like a new addition to that, but
I almost wondered if part of the point of that was the 30 days. The timing of it. Maybe, sort of like spelling this out and it has to be done within 30 days. I don't know. That seemed important somehow. I mean, I see why it's important, of course, because you want to hit the cycles of things, but I didn't know if that was part of the reason it's there at all, is 30 days. I don't know.
it looks like it's the avenue for how things get referred to council. So if it's a controversial issue, then it shall be referred to council. And so it looks like that definition was expanded a bit to include that it's the commission, the director, or the council that can make that determination of a controversial issue.
Okay,
The controversial issues were if CATC couldn't come to a clear decision, then we assumed that the issue was controversial and it would be picked up to the next approval body.
if we keep the proposed language in chapter 5, I definitely want to revisit how it's written in the bylaws. It's way too specific. It says any decision where there are 3 of the quorum opposed. So we could be making a tiny inconsequential decision and it's split. And we even had one of those and it didn't get referred. The no left turn from Roy Vaughn on commercial southeast was 5-4. So we had more than 3 voting against it, but it was a pretty small thing and it didn't get elevated. Whereas the bylaws say if 3 or more oppose it. Anyway, I'm okay with leaving it in chapter 5.
Be
I-
addressed in the bylaws.
I definitely want to change what it says in the bylaws.
Which I think would be fine with this, because what this is expanding is that the director or council can deem an issue controversial. It doesn't speak to how CATC does. So CATC's definition of it can be revised in the bylaws
yes.
piece.
Thank you. Yes.
The addition of with a commission recommendation there, which was fine, and then this additional time be granted, that is apparently a legal sentence that we did not get to the bottom of yet, so
Okay.
more updates to come on who determines what the appropriate verb or not verb is there.
Yeah, and I
Future perfect.
I
Future
also,
perfect, yeah,
I also
thank
had a comment, comment 9, a clarification. Oh, sorry, you did that. Additional time would be granted by whom? So it's not just the is and the be, that's fine.
Okay.
It's, yeah, who is granting that?
We will confirm the appropriate channels. Address accordingly.
Are we done with this? Are there any other comments from commissioners about the changes that we've been discussing?
I think it's thorough. I feel good about it.
I think based
Thank you,
on the
Cheryl.
discussion, I think we're all comfortable with what you're trying to do.
So you will see an updated version in next month's packet, and the hope will be that
That'll be perfect.
that will be, yes, ready to go. And we'll ask you to make the recommendation for us to start that process with council.
So the April, sorry, April Fool's Day. The agenda says April 1st, so April Fool's meeting. Hopefully any review or revision of the draft final.
Yep.
Hopefully there's either nothing to change or extremely minor and not controversial.
Yep.
And then the other primary agenda item would be the bylaws.
Bylaws conversation.
And so will staff provide any proposed revisions? You know, there's the consistency piece between updates to chapter 5 and the bylaws. And there's the consistency piece with other commissions and boards, bylaws. Do you want, I mean, I reviewed them and scribbled things on my copy. Do you want thoughts from us before the next meeting or just bring them?
I think bring them
Okay.
and we'll start the conversation.
And will you be providing a track changes version? Sorry, that's confusing. That was confusing. Will you provide proposed edits in the agenda packet, or are we just starting with the current ones?
Have we started any edits to the bylaws?
We have not.
I was not aware of any that we had
I
started.
have a couple of notes on it.
We were waiting until we were comfortable with what the
Yeah.
code was gonna say, because we don't want to start bylaws that contradict.
So the answer to my question is probably, we're not sure yet.
I think,
Just based
You'll
on
get
the,
what's.
just based on the
already there.
timing.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly we'll have the current
Exactly.
version. And if things happen to go quickly, maybe, or maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I think just from a timing perspective at this point, getting beyond anything other than consistency changes to match this, we wouldn't get past that
Sure.
in terms of staff recommendations for updates. So
I think if staff is able to do consistency recommendations, that would be helpful. If you're not able to, that's okay.
We're gonna prioritize finalizing these
Absolutely.
pages to chapter 5 and getting that circulated for review. And then we will look to start that consistency review for
Right.
the current bylaws.
Okay, I think we're done with agenda item 4, which means the final agenda item is to adjourn unless there's anything else for the good of the order. Okay, 6:56, CATC meeting adjourned.